Bonjour French 1. The purpose of today's video is to introduce you to some more activities that you can talk about liking and disliking, or activities that you can talk about doing yourself. Now, we did have activities in last section such as lire, which was to read, écouter, which is to listen, étudier, to study, téléphoner à des amis, call friends, travailler, to work. So you already have a large list of verbs and activities that you can talk about, and this is just kind of expanding that list. Keep in mind that, as always, I will pause after I say these French words to allow you some time to repeat after me. And be sure to notice that some of these are ER verbs, meaning they end in the letters ER, and you can use that same pattern that we used in the last section to change their endings and conjugate them so that they match the subject. Well, without further ado, here are some of those activities. So, first thing you might want to talk about is places where you go or where you like to go. The word for to go is aller. If you want to use the word for to dance, you'll use the word danser. If you want to talk about chatting with friends, now the word for to talk is parler, and that's all well and good, but if you want to talk about chatting for social purposes, you'll use the word discuter. And if you want to say that you're specifically chatting with friends, then you say discuter avec des amis. If you want to talk about swimming, the word for to swim is nager. The word for to go out, as in if you go out for the evening, whether you're going to a restaurant or a movie, but if you're just going out in general to hang out with friends, then you sortir. If you want to talk about the actual phrase for to see a movie, that's voir un film. And then we get into a separate section on your notes. Now these next four I want you to notice all include the verb faire. Faire is an irregular verb. Technically it means to do or to make, but you'll see it kind of used in weird ways where it doesn't translate word for word, because the French people use the word faire, again the word for to do or to make, in some phrases that we don't use the words do and make in. So this is not something that translates word for word, but it's good to know that faire technically in the French language means to do or to make. So the word for to play sports, or I would probably translate it better as to do sports, is faire du sport. Now in English, here's an example of one that doesn't translate. We don't talk about doing a party. We just say, I party, or we're going to party, or we're going to have a party, but we don't say that we do partying. That's something a little bit different, but in French, nonetheless, they use faire for this phrase, so it's faire la fête. And here they have you translating the next one, faire les magasins, is to go shopping, but then a lot of people get confused because they say aller is to go. Again, this is not something that translates word for word. They talk about doing shopping, and that phrase is faire les magasins. And again, in English we talk about having a picnic, but French people do a picnic, so they use the word faire with this phrase, and they say faire un pique-nique. Some other activities involve the verb jouer. Now, jouer means to play. Now, I know you're saying, well, on the last page you had faire as to play sports. Why don't you jouer au sport? I'm not really sure. I don't have a good answer other than they tend to talk about faire du sport, to do sports. But when it comes down to actually sports that you play, they use the word jouer to say to play. There's also activities that you can play, such as playing chess or playing cards. So there are a lot more sports out there than just baseball and soccer, but for our purposes, we're just trying to get you a couple of words to get you started. So to play baseball is jouer au baseball. To play cards, as in a card game, is jouer aux cartes. You can also play soccer. Notice, don't get confused. They call soccer football. What we know as football, as far as good old-fashioned NFL, pigskin, American football, they actually call football américain. So they attach the word American to it. Actually, most of the rest of the world calls the sport that you play primarily with your feet football. So to say play soccer, you can either do the shortened version of jouer au foot, or you can do jouer au football, which is why the ball part is in parentheses. Finally, if you want to talk about to play chess, you say jouer aux échecs. The last thing they give you in this section is a couple of items that are sometimes associated with these activities, including la balle, which is a ball that's used in baseball. The other word that's also used for ball is le ballon. I want you to notice how ballon looks a lot like balloon. That's actually the word that you'll use for a soccer ball, because a soccer ball is actually inflated. So la balle is for a ball like a baseball. Le ballon is for a ball that's inflated. A basketball would be called le ballon because it looks a little bit more like balloon, if it helps you keep track of those in your head. And then, of course, the other key thing to being able to play baseball is la batte, which is the bat. Now this is something new, starting today, and for at least this section, we'll see how it goes. I want you to, whenever you're done taking your notes, take a moment and wrap things up in one of three ways. I want you to circle which way you're doing, so you'll either circle the word question, or the word summary, or the word critique, and then I want you to write at least one sentence in which you either ask a question about the video, so if something didn't make sense, you can circle question and write down a question that you have. Summary would mean that you write a sentence that sums up the main topic of the video. With vocabulary, it's a little bit harder, but with grammar topics and such, you can sum up kind of like, for example, if you were writing a summary of ER verbs, you have to change the ending on ER verbs by dropping the ER and adding certain endings, that kind of thing. But a summary sentence will kind of sum up a major idea from the video. If you choose to circle critique, then you get to critique the video, which means that you get to give me hints and tips and things that you think I should do differently with this video in the future. So right now, before you put everything away and wrap things up, I want you to take a moment and either circle question, summary, or critique, and then write a sentence that fulfills that topic.